At the core of the Urantia book lies a simple declaration. All human beings are children of God. Therefore, all spiritual siblings are part of one big divine family. This foundational concept is captured in the oft-quoted phrase, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, that is scattered throughout the Urantia papers. The book continuously reinforces the singular point that if God is the first source and center, then it should be to no surprise that we are all a part of the same divine source. The Brotherhood of Man is not merely a social ideal, but a true spiritual reality that permeates every epoch of human development. Other religious texts, such as The Law of One by the Collective Conscious Ra, simplifies this relativity with the term other selves, highlighting this close relatedness we all share. After all, personality originates in He who created them. And human beings, from the age of moral decision-making, are most certainly endowed with the same fragment of the Father, known as the thought adjuster, dwelling within all of our minds. This spiritual endowment is described as the fundamental equalizer in that
God is no respecter of person, either spiritual or material.
Found in 1.4.6. This sets the stage for a view of human unity based not on race, nationality, or social status, but on spiritual parenthood, as other religious texts only hint towards. The adjuster, the fragment of God, resides in each human soul, regardless of outward distinction and without regard for the individual's actual belief in God throughout their lifetime. Consequently, the only penalty of the inward expression of not believing in God is that it inhibits the work the adjuster can actually do to make your ascension a little easier. In actuality, this fragment of God is so desperately attempting to help you that it will ultimately submit to your own will or inner voice. As indicated in 108.5.5, the thought adjusters
are called heavenly helpers, not earthly helpers. They are not interested in making the mortal career easy. Rather, are they concerned in making your life reasonably difficult and rugged so that decisions will be stimulated and multiplied. The presence of a great thought adjuster does not bestow ease of living and freedom from strenuous thinking. But such a divine gift should confer a sublime peace of mind and a superb tranquility of spirit.
So in other words, the ascension road for those that are willing is most certainly not an easy one. The book's account of planetary history is frank when it indicates that the realization of such a brotherhood has been long delayed by our planet's evolutionary confusion, rebellion, and human imperfection. We learn in 36.2.15 that our world is a decimal or experimental planet that only occurs on every 10th created habitable planet, which means that life begins anew with a great deal of unpredictability when it comes to how various species on the planet evolves. Papers on the default of the planetary prince and the rebellion of Lucifer show how pride and isolation disrupted the progress of not only your adjuster's leading, but also the overall unity on Urantia, which is known as our planet. The book emphasizes how the concept of brotherhood has evolved through tribalism, nationalism, and religious sectarianism throughout our history, with each stage imperfect but necessary for spiritual advancement. As a brief and stark example, it is found in 69.8.2 that slavery was seen by our celestial overseers as a
Great advancement over massacre and cannibalism
of old, which reminds us as the constant progression of our definition of what is right and wrong. Religion itself is sometimes described as a potential divisive force when it fosters exclusion rather than inclusion, which includes, even still today, evil that are committed in the name of religion. The gradual upliftment of humanity is described as a slow and painful evolution toward recognizing spiritual maturity and slowly removing the signs, tokens, and other remnants of the old ghost cults found in 87.5.14. And as a quick example, think of the wedding veil, right? When somebody's getting married, that's to conceal the bride's face from the jealous, spiteful ghosts that, of course, miss those days that they were once beautiful and attractive. So that's where it comes from. Interestingly, the book states that societal progress, especially in democratic governance, aids the realization of brotherhood that flowers from 55.10 from the
Ages of physical security, intellectual expansion, social culture, and spiritual achievement.
The many celestial authors view the family home as rightfully being the smallest form of governance that eventually expands outwards to towns, states, and even nations. It indicates in 56.5.13 that
Candidates for eternal life are practitioners of an invigorating and constructive technique for meeting all the vicissitudes and harassments of mortal living. Every day a true believer lives, he finds it easier to do the right thing.
this is done majorly by breaking through our beastly vestiges, found in 47.8.7, of indifference and indolence, found in 79.16. Again, it's through hard work and not passivity that our society progressively grows stronger. Our cultures need to mingle. Our warring nations need foreign exchange students. And we all just need to give each other a little more patience towards our upward progression of doing the right thing. Christ Michael's relationship with individuals, whether rich or poor, Jew or gentle, righteous or sinful, molded in partial love and investment in the human race. His gospel, referred to as the new religion of the Spirit, places the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man at its heart. In 155.5.6,
Jesus made it clear that the great difference between the religion of the mind and the religion of the spirit is that, while the former is upheld by ecclesiastical authority, the later is wholly based on human experience.
hence is the key difference that I highlight in my book on becoming a parent, where conformity and internal development are vastly different ideals. One is transformed by your environment, and the other is through your choices. When a Pharisee asked what would be the greatest commandment in 174.4.2, Jesus rightfully indicated that loving God would most certainly be the first principal commandment. And of course, the second being that,
You shall love your neighbor as yourself.
then indicating that there are no greater commandments than these. Hopefully you see my segue here when it comes to other selves associated with the book, The Law of One by the Collective Conscious Raw. Jesus rejected rituals, dogmas, and hierarchical religious forms, instead emphasizing a personal relationship with the Father and loving service to fellow humans, which of course is God's creation. When referring to his relationship to the apostles, he often personified the role of a wise elder brother, only subjugating to the notion of being a Messiah only after exhausting all other possibilities. According to the Ranchia book, Jesus practiced inclusive ministry, healing lepers, dining with tax collectors, uplifting women, and embracing Samaritans. The Ranchia book extends the Brotherhood of Man to encompass a vast cosmology of beings that are God-knowing. The book asserts that intelligent life throughout the universes is similarly indwelt with spirit fragments and shares a common divine source from the original Trinity. The book indicates that fusion with these divine forces indicates that propensity for real eternal survival, which includes Son, Spirit, and Father fused ascending mortals. While acknowledging celestial hierarchies and orders of beings, the Urantia book insists that spiritual equality reigns supreme. Despite there being entities with varying degrees of intelligence and powers throughout the grand universe, everyone throughout such a universe is seen as having an equally important role to play in God's proverbial orchestra. Even for those ascendant mortals that were not able to have the personal experience of meeting God, being subject to the supreme disappointment found in 22.7.6, this reality does not affect how their peers view these ascenders. In support to this surprising reality, there are even certain types of divine beings that admire us, wishing they had also our creature experiences. On a planetary level, the book envisions a time when all humanity comes to understand that humans of all races and nations belong to one spiritual family and one government. Eventually, in your ascension career, this unity concept even expands galactically to other species on other planets. Social harmony, peace, and prosperity are described as fruit born of spiritual unity. The shift from competitive nationalism to cooperative internationalism is not just an ethical requirement, but it's a spiritual imperative. We as the human race have already begun the racial blending that once included the 6 colored races found in 51.4.4 that was seen by the life carriers as affording
otherwise unattainable expression of diverse human potentials.
As a brief example, we learn in 83.6 that
the blue men were hunters, fishers, and food gatherers. They were expert boat builders. They made stone axes, cut down trees, erected log huts, partly below ground and roofed with hides. And there were peoples who still build similar huts in Siberia. The southern Cro-Magnons generally lived in caves and grottos,
while other colored races were known for their own unique gifts and abilities that were either blended or annihilated through the progression of time. Oh, by the way, maybe you can think of a religion that has blue entities that are small g gods. The Brotherhood of Man is also a visual representation of taking the best cultural ideology and value systems and having it eventually converge into a single government and religion. The book identifies several key obstacles to true brotherhood, which can be found in Lucifer's manifesto that denied the existence of the Universal Father and rejected the concept of divine authority, thereby undermining spiritual brotherhood, focusing on diversity rather than unity. Lucifer's teachings fostered self-aggrandizement, isolation, and assertion over unity, equality, and cooperation. Fear, after all, is said to be the root of most social dysfunction. It breeds suspicion, tribalism, and prejudice. Brotherhood requires the banishment of fear through spiritual faith and immersion or exposure to the group or individual. Selfishness manifests in greed, racism, sexism, and even violence, all contrary to the ideals of the universal family. Fun fact, Mary Magdalene was the chief spokesperson for the Women's Corps, found in 190.0.5. A reality that was lost due to the ethnocentric misogyny that later corrupted the teachings of Jesus, along with a few of his apostles. Despite my other videos praising figures such as Moses for compromising between solidified religion and his higher teachings, Paul was unfortunately known to submit in later years to popular misogynistic consensuses of the time, and we all are current witnesses of the current patriarchal institution Peter made. Jesus' teachings call for selflessness and service without regard for race, ethnicity, or gender. The book insists that true brotherhood begins with inner transformation, when a person recognizes every other as a spiritual sibling and acts accordingly. In 145.1, it teaches us that
from the Sermon on the Mount to the discourse of the Last Supper, Jesus taught his followers to manifest fatherly love rather than brotherly love. Brotherly love would love your neighbor as you would yourself, and that would be adequate fulfillment of the golden rule. But fatherly affection would require that you should love your fellow mortals as Jesus loves you.
True religion, after all, is inward and transformative. It recognizes all humans as brothers because they are the sons of the same divine parent. Listen in your own hearts for the constant call of universe service, as it will be a large part of making our world a better place. Religious experience, when authentic, leads to social action, real objectivity, and potential reform. It's the engine behind most abolition movements, humanitarian efforts, and moral leadership. The prophets and saints of history are portrayed as champions of unity when their faith aligned with love and have consequently received God's gifts in abundance. The Ranchi book offers a prophetic vision of a future where the Brotherhood of Man becomes globally realized. This future is not a utopian fantasy, but rather a progressive unfolding driven by spiritual awakening and social maturation. On thousands of more advanced planets, the Ranchi book indicates that such unity and concern for one another is a reality on spheres established in light and life. This brotherhood is embodied moment to moment in how we speak, vote, teach, and create influence with other selves. Thank you again for watching today's video, your continued support, and I'll see you on the next one.